It has a decently upright seating position, but it still feels more like a hybrid mountain bike, albeit with fat tires. Don't get hung up on the name though, because the specs on this bike is where the party's really at. For its MSRP of $1,399, it's got quite good performance. That starts with a big 48 volt and 17.5 amp hour battery providing 840 watt hours of capacity. Himiway says you can get 35 to 60 miles of range, or 56 to 96 kilometers, and that's pretty much spot on. Throttling around in the low 20s of mile per hour will achieve the lower end of that window, while a modest level of pedal assist can achieve 60 miles on an 840 watt hour battery. However, good luck sticking to just 20 miles an hour. The bike comes out of the box programmed for around 22 or 23 miles an hour, but you can go into the settings and open it up to 28 miles per hour or 45 kilometers per hour. At that speed, your range is definitely going to drop, but that's part of why this bike comes with such a large battery anyways. Even if you lose a third of your range from riding faster, you're still at around 25 miles or 40 kilometers of range, which is not bad at all for a fast fat tire e-bike. So the bike is definitely impressing me with its performance, but on the component side, it's alright, it's decent, I mean it's good, it's just not great. We're talking about Shimano Altus 7-speed transmission, and Tektro Aries disc brakes, neither of which are top shelf components, or even middle shelf components for that matter, but they're just fine. And you do get 180mm rotors on these brakes, so the braking distance is actually still pretty good. There's no rear suspension, but you do get an acceptable suspension fork. There's also a taillight and a pretty big headlight, so the components are not bad. Again, they're not great, but they're pretty good for the price. I also really appreciate that Himiway gives you fenders and a rear rack for the price. The rack is actually pretty nice. You don't get a spring clip, but there are rails underneath so that you can add a bungee cord. When it comes to the bike's ride, like I said earlier, it's something of a hybrid between upright and mountain bike style. It's actually pretty comfortable and is capable of riding on both on and off-road trails thanks to those big tires. The off-road ride is not perfect since you don't have any rear suspension, but it's still tons of fun to leave the designated trail behind and chart your own path. This is one of the best parts of fat tire e-bikes in my opinion. They just make such great all-around bikes for covering every surface, and you don't really have a penalty from the big tires since you don't have to pedal those giant rubber wheels by yourself. You've got a 750 watt motor to help you here. And with such a big battery, you can ride all afternoon without going dry. Now the fat tires do add to the weight, and at 72 pounds, this is a heavy bike. But like I said, with that extra power, you're not really going to notice it, and those fat tires more than make up for it with the amount of fun they give you from being able to ride over everything. So now as it stands, the Himiway Cruiser feels like a pretty nice balance in my opinion. Obviously this is not a super high-end e-bike. I don't expect this to hold up like I do for a $3,000 or $4,000 e-bike, but it's good enough for most people and is exactly what many are looking for in a first e-bike. It provides high value and great performance specs mixed with decent level components, all for a pretty great price of just $1,399. It's hard to argue with that when all you want is to go have some fun on a budget.